So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Was in Rwby and Built Harem World. So let's start the series. The training room of Atlas Academy was a cathedral of combat. Sleek, metallic walls rose to a vaulted ceiling 70 meters high, crisscrossed with gantries and observation decks. Holographic projectors could simulate any environment, from the forever fall forest to the cratered surface of the moon. The floor, a massive dust-reinforced steel plate, could withstand a direct hit from an artillery shell. Today, it was hosting a disaster. Winter Schnee deflected the blow with the flat of her saber, but the force of it still sent a jarring shock up her arm. She backpedaled, her heeled boots skidding on the polished metal, and reassessed her opponent. Naruto Uzumaki Ironwood stood 20 feet away, breathing heavily. He was 17, with a shock of sun-blonde hair so bright it seemed to defy the gray Atlas aesthetic. 3 distinct whisker-like marks adorned each of his tanned cheeks. He wore standard Atlas combat fatigues, but they were modified, lighter, more flexible, with reinforced joints he had designed himself. In his hands, he held a weapon unlike any other. It was called Gale. In its dormant state, it was a simple-looking bracer on his left forearm. But with a thought and a spark of electricity dust, it shifted. The bracer expanded, segments sliding and locking into place to form a reinforced composite bow, its limbs humming with stored kinetic energy. A retractable cable, tipped with a razor-sharp grapple, was spooled within the forearm piece. It was a weapon for a tactician, for someone who fought with their head as much as their hands. And Naruto was losing. He lunged, activating the grapple. The cable shot out, the tip sinking into the ceiling. He yanked on the line, using it to slingshot himself toward Winter at a dizzying speed, the bow reforming on his arm, an arrow of hard light dust already knocked. Winter didn't move. She didn't have to. As Naruto released the arrow, she simply shifted. Her body dissolved into a flurry of white rose petals, a Schnee family semblance known as glyph summoning used in a unique, evasive way. The arrow passed harmlessly through the petals. Naruto's eyes widened. He tried to correct his trajectory, but he was committed. He crashed onto the steel floor, rolling with the impact, but the missed shot had cost him his momentum. Winter materialized directly behind him, the tip of her saber, Rosenblatt, resting against the back of his neck. And that, she said, her voice crisp and devoid of any gloating, is why you never, ever go for the flashy finish. You telegraph your intent from a mile away. Naruto slumped, letting his head thunk against the cool floor. Yeah? I had you though. For a second. Winter removed her blade and offered him a hand. You had nothing. Your form was sloppy, your footwork was a mess, and you relied on that grapple like a crutch. She pulled him to his feet. If I were a real enemy, your throat would be on the floor. Naruto rubbed his neck, grinning sheepishly. Lucky for me, you're just a beautiful, terrifying taskmaster then. Winter's pale blue eyes narrowed, but a faint, almost imperceptible blush touched her cheeks. She had long since grown used to Naruto's irreverent charm, a quality that was as rare in Atlas as sunshine. It was infuriating. And, she had to admit, a little endearing. Charm won't fix your fundamentals, Uzumaki, she said, sheathing her saber. It might, he countered, walking over to a bench to grab a water bottle. He took a long gulp, his Adam's apple bobbing. It's worked so far. Winter followed him, her posture as rigid as a parade rest. Your weapons research is brilliant. Your thesis on kinetic energy transfer in variable form ammunition was adequate. But in a one-on-one fight, you're predictable. Ouch. Adequate. My heart. He clutched his chest dramatically. You really know how to wound a guy, Schnee. I'm being serious, Naruto. Her tone softened, just slightly. It was a tone she used with no one else. The joint combat exam is in 3 months. You need to be at the top of your game. The general, your father, he expects it. The mention of Ironwood brought a flicker of something serious to Naruto's eyes. The easy grin faded, replaced by a look of quiet determination. I know. He looked down at his hands. They were steady now, but he remembered the tremor that had plagued them as a child. The fear that he was broken. Winter, he said, his voice quieter. Can I ask you something? She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. You're going to anyway. He ignored the jab. During the spar, you used your semblance. Your glyphs. And I used my weapon, my training. But, he trailed off, struggling to find the words. When you fought, I could feel something. A pressure. Like a warmth coming from you. A presence. Winter was silent for a moment. She understood what he was asking. That, she said carefully, is aura. The manifestation of our soul. It's a shield, a source of power, and the fuel for our semblances. When two fighters clash, their auras interact. You can feel the weight of your opponent's soul pressing against your own. Naruto nodded slowly. Right. So, when we spar, what do you feel from me? The question hung in the air between them. Winter looked at him, truly looked at him. She thought of all the times they had trained, all the times she had pushed him to his limits. She thought of the medical scans, the scientific inquiries, the confused looks on the faces of Atlas's brightest minds. She thought of the void. I feel nothing, Naruto, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. When I fight you, there's no weight. No pressure. It's like striking a machine. A very skilled, very fast machine. But there's no soul pushing back. Naruto's jaw tightened. He had heard this before. It was the great mystery of his life. The adopted son of the general, a prodigy of engineering and combat theory, and yet, he was an anomaly. A ghost in the machine. The doctor said he had no aura. It wasn't locked, damaged, or dormant. It simply wasn't there. Yeah, he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That's what I thought. Winter opened her mouth to say something, what, she didn't know, when the heavy door to the training room hissed open. A young Atlesian Knight 200 unit stood in the doorway, its single optic glowing blue. Cadet Uzumaki Ironwood. It droned. You are requested in General Ironwood's private laboratory. Immediate compliance is advised. Naruto and Winter exchanged a glance. A request to the general's private lab was unusual. A request delivered by a knight was downright strange. Understood, Naruto said, grabbing his jacket. He looked at Winter. Duty calls. Try not to miss me too much. Don't let your ego write a check your skills can't cash, Uzumaki, she replied, the familiar frost back in her voice. But as the door closed behind him, the frost melted. A single, worried line creased her brow. The general's private laboratory was less a lab and more a high-security vault. Located deep within the heart of the Atlas military HQ, it was where Ironwood pursued his more personal projects. The ones that were too sensitive, too strange, for the main R&D departments. When Naruto entered, he found his father standing before a bank of holographic displays. His back was to the door, his posture, as always, ramrod straight. The silver in his hair had spread over the years, and the mechanical arm that now replaced his left one, a sleek, white and gold prosthesis of his own design, was a constant reminder of the night that had shattered their old life. You wanted to see me, sir? Naruto asked. There's, sir, a habit born of a lifetime in a military household. Ironwood turned. His eyes, the color of forged steel, swept over his son, cataloging him for injuries, for mood, for any sign of weakness. It was a look Naruto had known his entire life. It was the look of a general assessing a soldier. But beneath it, always, was the look of a father. Close the door, Ironwood said. Naruto did as he was told. The hiss of the hydraulic seal seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Ironwood gestured to the displays. They showed a series of complex energy readings, waveforms that spiked and fell in erratic patterns. Do you know what these are? Naruto stepped closer, his scientific mind immediately engaging. Residual energy signatures. High intensity. From the Watts incident. He pointed to a particular spike. That one is from the moment of the explosion. But these others. He frowned. They don't match any known power source. Not dust, not electrical, not kinetic. Correct, Ironwood said. He zoomed in on one of the waveforms. It was a deep, pulsing crimson. This is the energy that was emitted from your body that night. The words landed like a physical blow. Naruto felt the blood drain from his face. The memories of that night were fragmented, nightmarish. Pain. Rage. A red haze. He remembered waking up in a medical bay, his body aching, his throat raw from screaming. He remembered the looks of fear on the faces of the nurses. He remembered being told that his father had lost an arm. That Winter had barely escaped with her life. I did that, Naruto whispered, staring at the crimson waveform. It looked violent. Angry. You lost control, Ironwood corrected, his voice firm. There's a difference. Does it matter? Naruto's voice cracked. People were hurt because of me. You were hurt because of me. Ironwood crossed the room and placed his flesh and blood hand on Naruto's shoulder. The grip was strong, grounding. Listen to me, son. That power is a part of you. It always has been. Denying it, fearing it, won't make it go away. The only way to ensure it never hurts anyone again is to understand it. To control it. Naruto looked up at his father, his blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. But how? The scientists, they've been studying me for years. They say I have no aura. They can't explain any of this. I'm not sending you to another lab, Ironwood said. He turned back to the displays and tapped a command. The crimson waveforms vanished, replaced by a single image, a large, Gothic-styled academy perched on a towering cliff overlooking a lush, green landscape. I'm sending you to a school. Naruto blinked. What? That's Beacon. In Vale. Dad, I'm in the middle of my advanced tactical training. I have the joint combat exam. The exam can wait. Ironwood's tone brooked no argument. Your training here has given you the tools of a soldier. But what you're dealing with, this isn't a military problem. It's something else. Something older. He zoomed in on the Academy's central tower. Beacon Academy is run by a man named Ashbin. He's unique. He's been fighting a war longer than any of us have been alive. A war against forces that standard military doctrine can't comprehend. He turned to face Naruto fully. If anyone can help you understand what's inside you, it's him. Naruto stared at the image of Beacon. It was so different from Atlas. So much color. So much life. It was a world away from the steel and snow he had always known. And my team? He asked, his voice small. You'll be assigned one. A team of 4, like all the others. Ironwood hesitated. It was a rare moment of uncertainty for the general. Naruto, I have to warn you. Ashbin knows about the What's incident. He knows about what you became. He's agreed to take you on, but you will be watched. By him, by his inner circle, and probably by your own teammates. Naruto looked at the crimson waveform still flickering in the corner of the display. A monster lived inside him. A monster that had hurt the people he loved most. He thought of Winter's words in the training room. There's no soul pushing back. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe he didn't have a soul. Maybe this thing, was all he was. But his father believed in him. That had to count for something. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. When do I leave? Ironwood's stern expression softened into something resembling pride. Tomorrow. An airship will take you as far as Vale. From there, you're on your own. Naruto nodded. He looked at his father, at the mechanical arm that served as a permanent reminder of his greatest failure. Dad, I'm sorry. For everything. Ironwood pulled him into a sudden, fierce embrace. It was a rare display of physical affection, and it spoke volumes. You come back from this, Naruto. You come back in control. That's an order. Naruto hugged him back, burying his face in the fabric of his father's greatcoat. For just a moment, he wasn't a cadet, a prodigy, or a monster. He was just a scared kid, saying goodbye to the only parent he had ever known. The airship ride from Atlas to Vale was the longest 8 hours of Naruto's life. He had spent the first hour staring out the window, watching the frozen wasteland of Solitas give way to the frozen ocean, which then gave way to the temperate waters of Sanus. It was the furthest he had ever been from home, and the knot in his stomach was a mixture of excitement, terror, and profound loneliness. The rest of the flight he spent going over the files on his datapad. Dossiers on his potential classmates. Notes on Valian customs and laws. And a heavily redacted file on one Professor Ashbin, headmaster of Beacon Academy. By the time the airship touched down at the Vale International Aerodrome, Naruto had a headache and a new appreciation for how little he actually knew about where he was going. He stepped off the ramp and into a world of color. The air was warm and thick with the scent of blooming flowers and something that smelled suspiciously like the ocean. People bustled past, their clothes bright and varied, their faces open and smiling. It was the complete opposite of Atlas's ordered, gray uniformity. A man was waiting for him at the terminal exit, holding a small sign that simply read, Uzumaki. He was a stout, cheerful-looking man with a magnificent mustache. You must be the transfer student from Atlas. The man boomed, his voice far too loud for the space. I'm Professor Peter Port. Welcome to Vale. Thrilling, isn't it? The adventure. The excitement. Naruto managed a small smile. Thanks. It's a lot. A lot indeed. A lot of potential. Port clapped him on the back with enough force to stagger a smaller man. Come. The airship to Beacon awaits. We have much to discuss. Like, for instance, the time I single-handedly defeated a migrating flock of Nevermores with nothing but my wits and a rather sharp butter knife. Naruto quickly learned that Professor Port's stories required no response other than the occasional nod. The Beacon Bullhead ride was short, but it offered Naruto his first real view of the academy. It was breathtaking. The gleaming white and glass buildings, the manicured lawns, the massive CCTS tower reaching toward the sky. It was a palace compared to the military fortress of Atlas. But his awe was quickly replaced by a familiar anxiety as Port led him through the grand entrance hall and toward the headmaster's office. The elevator ride was silent, save for the whir of gears. The office was circular, lined floor to ceiling with bookshelves. A large, ornate desk sat in the center, and behind it, silhouetted against a massive gear-shaped window, stood a man with graying hair and tired, knowing eyes. He was sipping from a coffee mug. Naruto Uzumaki, Ajban said, his voice calm and measured. Welcome to Beacon. Please have a seat. Port gave a little bow and excused himself, leaving Naruto alone with the headmaster. Naruto sat, feeling like a cadet reporting for a dressing down. Coffee? Ajban offered, holding up his mug. It's a special blend. I find it helps with the long nights. No, thank you, sir. Ajban nodded, taking a sip himself. He studied Naruto for a long, uncomfortable moment. Your father speaks very highly of you. He tells me you're quite the scientist. Designed your own weapon, I hear. Yes, sir. Gale. Naruto held up his left arm, showing off the bracer. A bow. An interesting choice. Requires precision. Patience. Ajban's eyes twinkled. Not the first words that come to mind when one thinks of a young man with an uncontrollable power within him. Naruto flinched. So much for pleasantries. I've read the reports from the Watts incident. Ajban continued, his tone not unkind. I've seen the footage. The destruction you caused was immense. But I've also seen the footage of you before that. The discipline. The intelligence. The loyalty to your father. He set his mug down. You are not a monster, Naruto. You are a young man with a unique and dangerous condition. My job is to help you manage it. How? Naruto asked, the question coming out more desperate than he intended. I've been tested my whole life. No one can figure out what's wrong with me. What if it's not a matter of something being wrong? Ajban asked, leaning forward. What if it's a matter of something being different? Aura is the light of our souls. But what if your soul is not a light, but something else entirely? Something older. Something more primal. Naruto frowned. I don't understand. You don't have to. Not yet. Ajban stood, walking to the window. For now you will train. You will attend classes. You will learn to work with a team. And you will learn to trust them, as they must learn to trust you. The power inside you, it is tied to your emotions. Your fear. Your rage. Your desire to protect. At Atlas you learn to suppress those emotions. To be a perfect soldier. Here you will learn to understand them. He turned back to Naruto. Your team has already been assembled. They are waiting for you in the courtyard. I won't lie to you, they are not the team I would have chosen for you. But they are the team you need. Go. Meet them. And remember, trust is a weapon too. Sometimes the most powerful one you have. The courtyard was bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun. A group of students milled about, but Naruto's eyes were drawn to three figures standing apart from the rest, as if an invisible wall separated them from the crowd. He walked toward them, his heart pounding. The first was a girl who seemed to glow with an inner light. She had long, flowing brown hair and kind, gentle eyes the color of warm honey. She wore a simple, white dress with brown leggings and practical boots, and she clutched a wooden staff topped with a crystal that pulsed with a faint, rhythmic light. She looked like she belonged in a peaceful meadow, not a combat school. This had to be Amber. The second was a young man who couldn't have looked more out of place if he tried. He was tall and lanky, with a shock of flaming red hair and a face full of freckles. He wore an immaculate, bright orange and black suit with a matching bowler hat, which he tipped at Naruto as he approached. His grin was wide, but his sharp, calculating eyes missed nothing. This was Roman Torchwick. Naruto had read his file. Criminal. Thief. Arsonist. How he had ended up at Beacon was a mystery wrapped in an enigma. And the third was just a normal-looking kid. Brown hair, brown eyes, a slightly nervous smile. He wore standard Beacon attire and fidgeted with the strap of his shield. He looked like he'd be more at home in a library than on a battlefield. Naruto didn't recognize him from any file. Hey! The normal-looking kid said, stepping forward with his hand outstretched. You must be Naruto. I'm John Ark. It's really nice to meet you. Naruto shook his hand, a little thrown by the kid's earnestness. Yeah? Naruto Uzumaki. The prodigy from Atlas? Roman drawled, his voice a slow, melodic purr. He didn't offer a handshake. He just leaned on his fancy cane, which Naruto knew was also a high-caliber rifle and dust cannon. We've heard all about you. The general's son. The boy with no soul. The monster who ate a research facility. He grinned wider. Charming. Roman, Amber said softly, her voice like a gentle chime. Be nice. I'm always nice, sweetheart. It's my cross to bear. Naruto ignored him, turning to Amber. You're Amber, right? She nodded, offering a small, shy smile. It's an honor to meet you, Naruto. I've heard a little about your situation. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. There was something incredibly sincere about her. It was disarming. Thanks, Naruto said, meaning it. So, John clapped his hands together, clearly trying to break the tension. We're a team. What's our team name? As if on cue, Ashbin's voice echoed from the speakers mounted around the courtyard. Would the following students please report to the Cliffside Amphitheater for the initiation ceremony? Naruto Uzumaki, Amber, Roman Torchwick, and John Ark. John's face lit up. That's us. Come on. As they walked, Roman fell into step beside Naruto. His grin had faded, replaced by a look of cold, hard curiosity. So, leader, he whispered, just loud enough for Naruto to hear. Let's get one thing straight. I don't know why Ashbin plucked me out of my comfortable life of crime to play house with a bunch of kids. But I'm playing along. For now. So you do your job, keep the grim off my back, and I'll do mine. But the moment your little monster act starts up again. He tapped his cane against the ground. Don't expect me to stick around and hold your hand. Capiche? Naruto met his gaze, refusing to back down. I don't need you to hold my hand, Torchwick. I just need you to watch my back. Can you do that? Roman's eyes flickered with something, surprise perhaps, or a grudging respect. He tipped his hat. We'll see, Your Majesty. We'll see. They reached the amphitheater, a stone platform overlooking a dark and ancient forest. The Emerald Forest. Naruto could feel it pulsing with unseen life, a wildness that was a far cry from the sterile training grounds of Atlas. He looked at his team. A gentle girl with mysterious powers. A cynical criminal with a hidden agenda. A bumbling, awkward kid who looked like he'd never held a sword in his life. And him. The monster. Ashbin's voice echoed around them. For years you have trained to become warriors. Today, your education begins. Naruto took a deep breath. He had no idea what the future held. But as he stood on that cliff, with the wind in his hair and his new team at his side, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt hope. The initiation was chaos. Students were launched from metal panels into the air, soaring over the vast expanse of the Emerald Forest in a freefall that would have terrified a less experienced fighter. Naruto, however, felt a strange sense of calm. The wind roared in his ears, the ground rushed up to meet him, and for a few precious seconds, there was nothing but the moment. He activated Gale, the bracer shifting into its bow configuration. He waited, counting the seconds, judging the distance. Then, just as the trees were about to swallow him, he fired the grapple. The cable shot out, the tip sinking into a thick branch. He swung, using the momentum to arc gracefully onto a sturdy limb, landing in a perfect crouch. Silence. The forest was thick, humid, and alive with the sounds of unseen creatures. He was alone. The objective was simple: find the ruins, claim a relic, and get out. But the unspoken rule was just as important: find your partner. Naruto closed his eyes, listening. He couldn't sense auras like other hunters, but he had other senses. He could hear the rustle of leaves, the distant screech of a nevermore, the thrum of hidden life. And then, he heard something else. A scream. It was high-pitched, terrified, and unmistakably male. Of course! Naruto muttered, already moving. He leaped from branch to branch, using his grapple to swing through the gaps, following the sound of distress. He found John Ark in a small clearing, backpedaling furiously from a massive death stalker. The scorpion-like grim was easily the size of a bus, its stinger dripping with venom, its claws snapping with enough force to sever a man in half. John was trying to fight, his sword and shield, crochet mores, flashing, but his movements were clumsy, uncoordinated. He was terrified. And he was completely alone. Naruto didn't hesitate. He landed on a branch above the clearing, knocked an arrow of fire dust, and fired. The arrow streaked through the air, hitting the Death Stalker square in one of its many eyes. The creature screeched in pain and rage, its attention snapping away from John and toward this new threat. Hey! Ugly! Naruto shouted, firing another arrow. Eyes up here! The Death Stalker charged, its massive bulk smashing through small trees. Naruto leaped away, using his grapple to swing to another branch, leading the creature on a merry chase. Naruto! John yelled from below, his voice a mixture of relief and terror. Run, John! Naruto shouted back, firing another volley. Get to the ruins! I'll lose it! But John didn't run. He stood there, frozen, watching as the Death Stalker pursued his would-be savior. He looked at his sword. He looked at his shield. He thought of his family, of his sisters, of the legacy of the Ark name. He thought of how he had cheated his way into Beacon, how he was a fraud, a failure. And then he thought of Naruto, a stranger who had just risked his life for him without a second thought. No, he whispered. He gripped his sword, his knuckles white. He took a deep breath, and he ran. Not away from the Deathstalker, but toward it. Naruto was just about to fire another arrow when he saw a flash of white and blue below. John had caught up to the creature and was hacking at its rear legs. The blows were weak, barely scratching the armor, but they were enough to get the Deathstalker's attention. It whirled on John, its massive claws swinging. John raised his shield, but the impact sent him flying backward, his aura flickering dangerously. He crashed into a tree and slumped to the ground, dazed. The Deathstalker advanced, its stinger poised to strike. Naruto moved on instinct. He launched himself from the branch, not using his grapple, but simply falling. He landed on the Deathstalker's back, his boots finding purchase on its chitinous armor. He ran up its segmented body, his bow reforming into its bracer form. He reached the base of its stinger, grabbed it with both hands, and pulled. He wasn't strong enough. Not nearly. But he didn't care. The rage was building. The red haze was creeping in at the edges of his vision. He could feel it, that terrible, wonderful, terrifying power stirring in the depths of his being. No. He forced it down. He gritted his teeth, his muscles screaming in protest, and he pulled with everything he had, not just physical strength, but sheer, dumb, stubborn will. With a sickening crack, the stinger snapped. The Deathstalker shrieked, a horrible, keening sound. It thrashed wildly, throwing Naruto from its back. He hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him. And then, a golden blur. A girl with blonde hair and lilac eyes, riding a massive Nevermore, crashed into the clearing. She leaped from the bird's back, her shotgun gauntlets, ember silica, blazing. Each shot was thunderous, each impact a shockwave of force. She moved like liquid fire, her semblance, the ability to absorb and redirect kinetic energy, making her an unstoppable force. Her name was Yang Xiaolong, and she was pissed. Get away from them! She roared, unleashing a flurry of blows that sent the injured Deathstalker reeling. Another figure landed beside Naruto. A girl in a black bow, with dark hair and amber eyes, wielding twin pistols that unfolded into Kama blades. Blake Belladonna. She moved with a fluid, almost ghost-like grace, her strikes precise and deadly. Can you move? She asked Naruto, her voice calm despite the chaos. He nodded, scrambling to his feet and rushing to John. John! John, talk to me! John groaned, his eyes fluttering open. Did we win? Not yet, you idiots! A sharp voice cut through the air. Another girl, this one with white hair styled in an elaborate bob, landed nearby, glyphs shimmering beneath her feet. Wise Shni, Winter's younger sister. She took one look at Naruto, and her eyes widened in recognition. You're... No time! Naruto yelled, helping John to his feet. We need to move! That thing's not dead yet! He was right. The Deathstalker, despite its injuries, was still moving, still fighting. Yang was keeping it busy, but she was tiring. Blake was providing cover fire. Weiss was summoning glyphs, trying to create an opening. And then, with a thunderous crash, a Nevermore, a different one, a massive alpha, landed in the clearing, its beady eyes fixed on the group. They were trapped. A Deathstalker on one side, a Nevermore on the other. This is bad, John whimpered. Naruto's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and low on aura. They needed a plan. They needed... He looked at John. At the useless, terrified, courageous idiot who had tried to save him. John, he said, his voice low and urgent. Your shield. How strong is it? John blinked. It's really strong. It was my great-great-grandfather's. It's seen a lot of battles. Good. Naruto turned to the three girls. Weiss, can you make a gravity glyph? A big one, right in front of the Nevermore? Weiss sneered. Of course I can. But what? Do it. Yang, Blake, on me. We're going to give the bird a haircut. He didn't wait for confirmation. He ran, firing his grapple at a high branch. He swung up, over the clearing, landing on the cliff face above the Nevermore. Yang and Blake followed, using their own semblances and skills to scale the rock. Now, Weiss! Naruto shouted. Weiss stamped her foot, and a massive, purple glyph materialized directly in the Nevermore's flight path. The creature, confused and enraged, flew straight into it. The gravity field slammed it downward, pinning its head and neck to the ground. Now! Naruto yelled. He leaped. Yang leaped. Blake leaped. The three of them plummeted toward the trapped Nevermore, weapons blazing. Naruto's arrows, Yang's shotgun blasts, Blake's pistol rounds, they all converged on the creature's neck, tearing through feathers and flesh. The Nevermore screeched, its body convulsing. And then, with a final, shuddering gasp, it went still. But the Deathstalker was still coming. It had shaken off Yang's attack and was now charging straight for Weiss, who was alone and vulnerable. John saw it. He saw Weiss, frozen in place, her glyph fading. He saw the Deathstalker, its massive claw raised to strike. And he moved. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. He placed himself between Weiss and the Deathstalker, raising his shield. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a strategy. He just had his shield and his stubborn, stupid courage. The claw came down. The impact was immense. John's aura flared, then shattered. He was thrown backward, his shield spinning away. But he had slowed the creature down. He had bought them a second. It was all Naruto needed. He landed in front of the Deathstalker, his bow drawn. One arrow remained. One chance. He didn't aim for the eyes this time. He aimed for the gap in its armor, the soft, unprotected spot where the stinger used to be. He fired. The arrow flew true. It sank deep into the creature's flesh, and this time, it was tipped with lightning dust. The electrical charge coursed through the Deathstalker's body, seizing its nervous system. It twitched, shuddered, and then collapsed, its body dissolving into black smoke. Silence. Naruto stood there, breathing heavily, his arms shaking. He turned around. John was on the ground, unconscious. Weiss was kneeling beside him, her face pale, her hands glowing with a faint, healing light. Blake and Yang were standing guard, their eyes scanning the forest for more threats. Yang caught Naruto's eye. A slow, brilliant grin spread across her face. "Well," she said, dusting off her hands. "That was awesome." Naruto didn't smile. He just looked at John, the boy who had no business being a hunter, the boy who had just saved them all with nothing but a shield and a heart too big for his chest. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It was." The infirmary at Beacon was a place of sterile white and hushed whispers. It smelled of antiseptic and, oddly, freshly baked bread, a combination that Naruto found deeply unsettling. He sat in a hard plastic chair beside John's bed, watching his teammate sleep. John's aura had been completely depleted, and he had a few cracked ribs, but the worst of it was the sheer exhaustion. He had pushed himself far beyond his limits, and his body was forcing him to pay the price. The door hissed open, and Glinda Goodwitch entered, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. She held a clipboard and wore her usual expression of mild, professional disapproval. "Mr. Uzumaki," she said, her voice crisp. "The headmaster would like to see you. Now." Naruto didn't move. "Is he going to be okay?" Glinda's expression softened, just a fraction. "Mr. Ark will make a full recovery. He's young and apparently quite stubborn." She glanced at the sleeping boy. "You did well out there. All of you." Naruto finally stood, taking one last look at John before following Glinda out of the room. The walk to Ojban's office was a blur. His mind was still in the forest, still replaying the moment when the red haze had threatened to consume him. He had felt it. The power. The rage. The overwhelming desire to destroy. He had pushed it down, but it had been there, lurking just beneath the surface. Ojban was waiting for him, as always, silhouetted against the giant gear clock. But he wasn't alone. Standing beside the headmaster's desk was a girl with fiery red hair and bright, emerald green eyes. She wore a crisp Atlas uniform, and her hands were clasped behind her back in a perfect parade rest. She looked like a doll. A very expensive, very dangerous doll. "Naruto," Ojban said, gesturing to the girl. "I'd like you to meet Penny Polandina. She's a special student, visiting from Atlas. She was very eager to meet you." Penny's face lit up with a smile so bright it was almost blinding. She bounded forward, closing the distance between them in 2 quick steps, and grabbed Naruto's hands in her own. "Salutations, Naruto Uzumaki!" she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "I have heard so much about you. Your work on variable form kinetic energy transfer is simply fascinating. I have so many questions. Do you mind if we become friends right now? I've always wanted a friend who understands energy transduction." Naruto blinked, completely thrown off. Sure. Nice to meet you too, Penny." "Wonderful!" Penny beamed, pumping his hand up and down. "This is the best day of my entire existence." Ojban cleared his throat gently. "Penny, perhaps you could give us a moment? Naruto and I have a few things to discuss." "Of course, Headmaster Ojban." Penny released Naruto's hands and stepped back, but she didn't leave. She just stood there, watching them with an unnerving, unblinking smile. Ashbin sighed, a flicker of amusement in his tired eyes. Penny. Oh. Right. Leaving now. She turned and walked briskly to the elevator, waving at Naruto as the doors closed. Goodbye, new friend. I will find you later for friendship activities. The doors slid shut, and the office fell silent. She's interesting, Naruto said, at a loss for better words. She's one of a kind, Ashbin agreed, taking a sip of his coffee. Much like yourself? He gestured to a chair. Please sit. Naruto sat, the familiar anxiety coiling in his stomach. He knew what was coming. The initiation, Ashbin began, was a success. Your team retrieved a relic, worked together effectively, and demonstrated considerable courage, particularly in the face of overwhelming odds. He paused, his eyes studying Naruto. However, that's not what I want to discuss. Here it comes. I want to discuss what didn't happen in that forest. Naruto frowned. What do you mean? Ashbin leaned forward, steepling his fingers. I have eyes everywhere, Naruto. I have observers in the forest, monitoring the students. They report on aura levels, combat effectiveness, emotional states. And they reported something very strange about you. What? Nothing, Ashbin said simply. When you were fighting the Deathstalker, when you were most enraged, most desperate, your aura registered as a flat line. Not depleted. Not flickering. Simply absent. And yet you performed feats of strength and agility that should have been impossible without aura enhancement. You snapped a Deathstalker's stinger. With your bare hands. Naruto looked down at his hands. They looked normal. Human. I don't know how I did that, he whispered. I do, Ashbin said. Or rather, I have a theory. He stood and walked to a bookshelf, pulling down a thick, leather-bound tome. He opened it to a marked page and set it in front of Naruto. The page showed an ancient, faded illustration. It depicted a creature of pure shadow, a monstrous fox with 9 massive tails, each one a weapon of mass destruction. Its eyes were pools of crimson fire, and it stood atop a mountain of bodies, silhouetted against a burning moon. This is a legend, Ashbin said quietly. A story from a time before memory, before the brother gods, before the Grimm. It tells of a creature of pure chaos, a being of such immense power that it could reshape the world with a thought. It was called the 9-tailed demon fox. Naruto stared at the illustration, his blood running cold. The eyes. Those burning, crimson eyes. He had seen them before. In his nightmares. In the mirror, for a terrifying moment during the Watts incident. You're saying, that thing is inside me? I'm saying, Ashbin corrected gently, that what is inside you is far older and far more powerful than aura. It is a primal force. A well of pure, untamed energy. The people of your mother's homeland, wherever that was, they called it chakra. Naruto looked up, his eyes wide. My mother? You know something about my mother? Ashbin shook his head regretfully. Only that she was not from Remnant. Your father suspected as much, which is why he sent you here. Your power, this chakra, it doesn't originate from our world. It came with you. It is you. The implications were staggering. Naruto felt like the ground had been pulled out from under him. He wasn't just a freak without a soul. He was an alien. A container for a monster from another world. Why are you telling me this? He asked, his voice hoarse. Because you need to understand what you're dealing with, Ashbin said. Fear of the unknown is a poison. But knowledge? Knowledge is a weapon. The power inside you is not inherently evil. It is a force of nature. It can be used for destruction, yes. But it can also be used for protection. For creation. The key is control. How do I control something like that? Naruto demanded, gesturing at the horrific illustration. That, Ashbin said, a small smile playing on his lips, is what you're here to learn. And I believe I've found you a teacher. He turned to a small intercom on his desk and pressed a button. You can come in now. The elevator doors opened, and Penny Polendina stepped back into the room. But this time, her smile was different. Quieter. More knowing. Penny, Ashbin said, is not a typical student. She is a synthetic being. An android. She has no aura, no soul in the traditional sense. And yet she possesses a power source that is remarkably similar to your own. Penny walked toward Naruto, her movements fluid and graceful. My father, Dr. Polendina, he created me using a unique energy source. It's not aura. It's something else. Something he found, in a place he won't talk about. She tilted her head, her green eyes meeting his blue ones. It feels like you, Naruto. Your energy. It feels like mine. Naruto stared at her, at this strange, wonderful, impossible girl. She was like him. Another ghost in the machine. Will you train with me? Penny asked, her voice filled with a hopeful earnestness. We can figure it out together. We can be weird energy friends. For the first time in days, a genuine smile touched Naruto's lips. It was small, hesitant, but it was real. Yeah, he said. I'd like that. Being team leader, Naruto quickly discovered, was nothing like being a cadet. As a cadet, you had one job: follow orders. Execute the mission. Don't think, just act. As team leader, the calculus was different. Every decision was a weight on his shoulders. Every failure was his fault. Every member of his team was his responsibility. And his team was a disaster. Roman Torchwick treated every mission like a personal inconvenience. He was competent, frighteningly so, but he was also lazy, cynical, and utterly unwilling to put in any effort that didn't directly benefit him. He showed up late to training, ignored Naruto's orders when it suited him, and spent most of his free time lounging on the roof, smoking something that smelled suspiciously like burning herbs. He's a lost cause, Weiss Schnee declared one afternoon, watching Roman saunter away from a particularly disastrous team drill. Why Ashban put a common criminal on a team with actual hunters in training is beyond me. Naruto didn't respond. He was watching Amber. The gentle girl with the honey brown eyes was sitting on a bench at the edge of the training ground, her staff across her lap. She wasn't watching the drill. She was staring at the sky, a distant, troubled look on her face. She had been like that all week. Distracted. Withdrawn. Amber? Naruto called, walking over to her. You okay? She blinked, as if coming out of a trance. Oh. Yes. I'm fine, Naruto. Just thinking. About what? She hesitated, her fingers tightening on her staff. About home. About responsibilities I left behind. She looked at him, and for a moment, her gentle eyes held a depth of sorrow that seemed far too old for her young face. Do you ever feel like you're carrying something so heavy that you can't ever put it down? Not even for a second? Naruto thought of the fox. Of the red haze. Of the faces of the people he had hurt. Yeah, he said quietly. I know that feeling. Amber smiled, a sad, understanding smile. Then you know why I can't talk about it. Not yet. She stood, patting his arm gently, and walked away, leaving Naruto more confused than ever. John, at least, was trying. He was trying so hard it hurt to watch. After the initiation, he had thrown himself into training with a desperate, manic energy. He woke before dawn to run laps. He spent hours in the library studying tactics. He asked Naruto for pointers, for advice, for anything that might make him better. But he was still clumsy. Still uncoordinated. Still fundamentally out of his depth. Naruto, I need to tell you something, John said one evening, pulling him aside after a particularly grueling sparring session. His face was pale, his eyes filled with shame. What's up, John? John took a deep breath. I cheated to get into Beacon. I use fake transcripts. I don't have any formal combat training. I've never even unlocked my aura. I'm a fraud. The confession hung in the air between them. Naruto stared at his teammate, at the boy who had thrown himself in front of a Death Stalker to save a girl he didn't even know. The boy who trained harder than anyone else, despite having no natural talent. The boy who was, in his own clumsy, earnest way, the bravest person Naruto had ever met. So? Naruto said. John blinked. So I'm a fraud. I don't belong here. John, Naruto said slowly, I have a literal demon monster living inside me. I've destroyed a military research facility and hurt the people I love most. By your logic, I shouldn't be here either. John opened his mouth, then closed it again. Naruto put a hand on his shoulder. You're not a fraud. You're someone who wanted something so badly that you were willing to risk everything to get it. That's not cheating. That's courage. He squeezed his shoulder. You saved Weiss's life. You stood between her and a Death Stalker with nothing but a shield. Transcripts don't do that. Courage does. John's eyes glistened. You really mean that? I really mean that. Now stop feeling sorry for yourself and get back to training. You've got a lot of work to do. John nodded, a shaky smile breaking through his shame. Thanks, Naruto. I won't let you down. I know you won't. The weeks that followed were a blur of classes, training, and quiet, midnight conversations with Penny. They would meet on the roof of the dormitory, away from prying eyes and ears, and they would practice. Penny called it energy awareness. It was less about fighting and more about feeling. She would close her eyes and extend her senses inward, toward the core of her being, where a swirling vortex of green energy pulsed and flowed. "Feel it, Naruto," she would whisper. "Feel it moving. Feel it breathing. It's not a monster. It's a part of you." Naruto tried. He sat for hours, meditating, trying to find the red haze within himself. It was always there, lurking at the edges of his consciousness, a burning, angry presence. But whenever he tried to touch it, to feel it, it would recoil, hissing and spitting like a cornered animal. "It doesn't trust you," Penny observed one night. "No kidding," Naruto muttered, frustrated. "It's been alone for a very long time. Trapped. Angry. It doesn't know that you're its container. It thinks you're its jailer." Penny tilted her head, her mechanical mind whirring. "You need to show it that you're not a threat. That you're willing to share the burden." "How do I do that?" Penny smiled her bright, innocent smile. "I don't know. But I have complete faith that you'll figure it out. You're the smartest person I know, Naruto." He couldn't help but smile back. Her optimism was infectious. The peace, as it always did, shattered without warning. Naruto was in the library, researching ancient myths for any reference to chakra, or nine-tailed foxes, when his scroll buzzed. A message from Ashbin. "Emergency meeting. My office. Now." He ran. When he burst into the headmaster's office, he found a scene of controlled chaos. Glinda Goodwitch was pacing, her riding crop tapping against her palm. Crow Branwen, a grizzled man with a perpetual scowl and a flask permanently attached to his hip, was leaning against a bookshelf, his expression grim. And Amber. Amber was sitting in a chair, her face ashen, her hands trembling. "What happened?" Naruto demanded. Ashbin looked up from his desk, his face etched with lines of worry. "There's been an attack. An attempt to capture Amber." Naruto's blood ran cold. "What? Who?" "Her attackers were unusual," Ashbin said carefully. "They were after her power. The power of the Fall Maiden." Amber looked up at Naruto, her eyes filled with a terror he had never seen before. "They almost succeeded. If Crow hadn't arrived when he did." "Maiden?" Naruto repeated, confused. "What's a maiden?" Ashbin sighed, exchanging a glance with Crow. "It's a long story, Naruto. One I had hoped to tell you in time. But events have forced my hand." He gestured for Naruto to sit. "What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. It is the most closely guarded secret on Remnant. The reason why I brought your team together. The reason why Ember is here." Naruto sat, his mind racing. "There are 4 maidens," Ashbin began. "4 women who possess immense magical power, passed down through generations. They are the guardians of the seasons, the protectors of the world against an ancient evil. Amber is the Fall Maiden." Naruto looked at Amber, at the gentle, kind girl who had offered him a sympathetic ear on his first day. A maiden. A magical guardian. "The people who attacked her," Ashbin continued, "work for Salem, the Queen of the Grim. An immortal being who has sought the destruction of humanity since time immemorial. She wants the maiden's power for herself. If she acquires all 4, she will be unstoppable." The room fell silent. Naruto tried to process the information, but it was too much. A secret war. Immortal witches. Magic. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because your team is no longer just a team," Ashbin said. "Amber's cover is blown. She can't return to a normal life. She needs protection. Constant protection. And the people best suited to protect her are the people who already know her, who already fight beside her." He looked Naruto directly in the eyes. "You." Naruto looked at Amber. She was crying, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She was terrified. Alone. Hunted. He thought of his own burden. The monster inside him. The fear that he would hurt everyone he loved. "I'll do it," he said. Ashbin nodded, a flicker of relief in his ancient eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that." Crow pushed off from the bookshelf, his scowl deepening. "This isn't a game, kid. The people after her, they're not your average thugs. They're professionals. Killers. They've got a woman named Cinderfall leading them, and she's as dangerous as they come." "I don't care," Naruto said flatly. "She's my teammate. I protect my own." Crow studied him for a long moment, then nodded, a grudging respect in his eyes. "All right, kid. Welcome to the war." The secret changed everything. Naruto couldn't look at his teammates the same way anymore. He knew something about Amber that they didn't. He had a responsibility to protect her that they couldn't even imagine. And the weight of that secret was crushing him. He started pulling away. He trained harder, pushing himself to exhaustion. He spent less time with John, less time deflecting Roman's jabs, less time pretending that everything was normal. He watched Amber constantly, his eyes tracking her every move, cataloging every potential threat. Amber noticed. Of course she did. "You're hovering," she said one afternoon, finding him standing guard outside the women's dormitory. "It's sweet, but it's also a little creepy." Naruto flushed. "I'm not hovering. I'm just being aware." "You're hovering." She smiled gently, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Naruto, you can't protect me every second of every day. You'll burn out." "I don't care," he said stubbornly. "I made a promise." "To who? Ajpin? Or to yourself?" He didn't have an answer. The strain began to show in team dynamics. During a sparring match, Naruto was so focused on positioning himself between Amber and the rest of the team that he completely missed an opening. Roman exploited it, his cane cracking against Naruto's ribs with enough force to send him sprawling. "Heads up, Your Majesty," Roman drawled, twirling his cane. "Can't protect the princess if you're on the ground." "Shut up, Roman," Naruto growled, getting to his feet. Roman's eyes narrowed. "Make me." They were in each other's faces in an instant, the tension that had been building for weeks finally boiling over. "You've been off since day one," Roman hissed. "Strutting around like you're better than the rest of us. Ordering us around. And now you're playing bodyguard to the quiet one. What's the deal, huh? She your girlfriend or something?" "Stay out of it, Torchwick." "Or what? You'll unleash the monster? Go ahead. I'd like to see it." The red haze flickered at the edges of Naruto's vision. He could feel the fox stirring, responding to his anger, his frustration. For a terrifying moment, he wanted to let it out. He wanted to show Roman exactly what a monster looked like. "Naruto, stop." It was Amber. She stepped between them, her staff held horizontally, her eyes calm but firm. "Both of you stop. This isn't who we are." Roman laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Who we are? Sweetheart, there is no we. There's just a bunch of misfits thrown together by a crazy old man. I'm a criminal. You're a mystery. Blondie's a fraud. And His Majesty over there is a ticking time bomb." He tipped his hat. "There's no team. There's just 4 people waiting for the inevitable explosion." He turned and walked away, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. John looked devastated. "He knows. About me?" "He's observant," Amber said quietly. "And he's not wrong. About any of it." Naruto stared at the ground, his fists clenched. The red haze was receding, but the shame remained. He had almost lost control. Over a stupid argument. Over nothing. "We need to talk," Amber said. "All of us. Tonight. On the roof." The roof was cold, the wind biting. Veils sprawled below them, a glittering carpet of lights. Roman was there, leaning against the railing, his hat pulled low. John sat cross-legged on the ground, hugging his knees. Naruto stood apart, his back to them all. Amber stood in the center. "My name is Amber," she began, her voice soft but clear. "And I am the Fall Maiden." She told them everything. About the magic. About the maidens. About Salem and the secret war. About the attack and the danger that still hunted her. By the time she finished, John's jaw was on the floor. Even Roman had pushed his hat back, his sharp eyes unreadable. "Why are you telling us this?" Roman asked. "This is top-shelf secret stuff. The kind of thing people get killed for knowing." "Because we're a team," Amber said simply. "Or at least, we're supposed to be. Naruto's been carrying this alone, and it's been tearing him apart. Tearing us apart. Secrets poison trust. And without trust, we're nothing." She looked at Naruto. "I'm sorry I made you carry this. It wasn't fair." Naruto finally turned, his eyes glistening. "I would have done anything to protect you." "I know. That's why you're my leader." She smiled. "But you don't have to do it alone." The silence stretched. Then, unexpectedly, Roman laughed. It wasn't his usual mocking drawl. It was a real laugh, surprised and genuine. "Well, hell," he said, shaking his head. "A magical maiden, a demon host, a fraud, and a thief. We're like the world's most dysfunctional fairy tale." He looked at Amber, his gaze sharp. "So these people, the ones after you. Cinderfall and her crew. What's their deal?" Amber's expression darkened. "Cinder wants power. All of it. She's ruthless, cunning, and she has no conscience. She'll do anything to achieve her goals. And she's not working alone. Naruto added, remembering Ajpin's briefing. She has a team. A woman named Emerald, a guy named Mercury, and a scientist. A man named Arthur Watts. Roman's eyes flickered. Watts? As in, the Atlas scientist who supposedly died in a lab explosion a few years back? That's him, Naruto confirmed. He's alive. And he's working for Salem. Roman let out a low whistle. Okay. So we're not just dealing with thugs. We're dealing with a coordinated, intelligent enemy with inside knowledge of the most advanced military on the planet. He looked at Naruto, and for the first time, there was no mockery in his gaze. We're going to need a better plan than stand in front of her and hope for the best. Naruto nodded. I know. I've been thinking about it. We need to use our strengths. John's shield. Your cunning. Amber's magic. And… he hesitated. And your monster. Roman finished for him. Yeah. That's the wild card, isn't it? Can you control it? Naruto thought of the red haze. Of the fox's anger. Of the times he had almost lost himself. I don't know, he admitted. But I'm working on it. John stood up, brushing off his pants. Then we'll help you. Whatever you need. We're a team, right? We figure it out together. Amber nodded. Roman, after a long moment, gave a small, grudging shrug. Don't expect me to hold your hand and sing campfire songs, he said. But if the alternative is getting killed by a psycho witch and her mad scientist buddy, I suppose I can be persuaded to lend a hand. For the first time in weeks, Naruto felt a flicker of something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The attack came without warning. It was a Tuesday. An unremarkable, gray-skied Tuesday. Naruto was in the library with Penny, practicing his energy awareness exercises. He was getting better at feeling the fox's presence, at distinguishing its emotions from his own. It was still angry, still untrusting, but it was no longer actively hostile. It was like a caged animal that had stopped growling and started watching. Penny was pleased. You're making excellent progress, Naruto. At this rate, you'll be able to communicate with it in no time. Communicate? Naruto asked, dubious. You think I can talk to it? Why not? It's a part of you. And all parts want to be understood. Before Naruto could respond, the lights flickered. Then died. The emergency generators kicked in, bathing the library in a harsh, red glow. And then the screaming started. They ran outside. The scene was chaos. Students were fleeing in all directions. Black, smoke-like creatures, grim, were pouring into the courtyard from a gaping hole in the defensive perimeter. And above it all, projected onto a massive holographic screen that had materialized in the sky, was a face Naruto knew all too well. Arthur Watts. Good evening, Beacon. Watts's voice echoed across the campus, smooth and mocking. I apologize for the interruption to your regularly scheduled programming. But I'm afraid I have a bit of unfinished business with an old acquaintance. Naruto Uzumaki. I know you're here. I know what you're hiding. And I've come to collect. The screen shifted, showing a live feed of the campus. And there, in the center of the image, was Amber. She was fighting, her magic blazing, but she was surrounded. Cinderfall, a woman with molten gold eyes and a cruel smile, was advancing on her, flames dancing in her palms. Naruto's blood turned to ice. Let's make a deal, Naruto. Watts' voice purred. You give yourself up. You let me study that fascinating power of yours. And I'll let your little maiden friend live. Refuse, and well. The screen showed Cinder's flames growing brighter. I'm sure you can imagine. Naruto, don't, Penny said, her hand on his arm. It's a trap. I know. He started walking. Penny followed. Then why are you going? He didn't answer. He just kept walking, toward the fight, toward the trap, toward whatever waited for him. The courtyard was a war zone. Glinda Goodwitch was fighting a Nevermore, her telekinesis hurling debris at the creature. Crow was a blur of motion, his sword harvest cutting through grim after grim. Students were fighting back to back, their auras flaring. Naruto ignored them all. He pushed through the chaos, his eyes fixed on Amber. Cinder had her cornered. Amber was on her knees, her magic flickering weakly, her face streaked with tears and blood. Cinder stood over her, a hand raised, ready to strike the final blow. Stop! Naruto shouted. Cinder turned, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. Ah! The guest of honor! Right on time. Let her go. This is between you and me. Is it? Cinder laughed, a cold, silvery sound. Oh, I don't think so. You see, I don't just want your power, little fox. I want hers too. Why settle for one when I can have both? She raised her hand, and a spear of black glass materialized in her palm. She aimed it at Amber's heart. Time slowed. Naruto saw it all. The spear. Amber's terrified face. Cinder's cruel smile. And in that moment, something inside him snapped. The red haze exploded behind his eyes. He didn't shift. He didn't transform. He simply moved. One moment he was 20 feet away. The next, he was between Cinder and Amber, his hand wrapped around the shaft of the glass spear. It burned. It cut. He didn't care. Get away from her, he snarled. Cinder's eyes widened in surprise. Then, they narrowed in anticipation. There it is. The monster within. She released the spear and leaped back, landing in a combat stance. Show me, Naruto Uzumaki. Show me what you really are. The red haze intensified. Naruto could feel the fox pushing against its cage, demanding release. It wanted out. It wanted to destroy. And for once, Naruto didn't fight it. He let it out. But not all the way. He focused, as Penny had taught him. He didn't push the fox away. He didn't try to cage it. He invited it forward. He shared his body, his power, his rage. And in return, the fox shared its strength. Crimson chakra erupted from his body, but it didn't consume him. It formed a shimmering, fox-shaped shroud around him. He had one tail. Then two. Then three. The power was immense, intoxicating. But he was still him. He was still in control. Cinder stared, for the first time, a flicker of genuine fear in her eyes. Impossible. Naruto didn't answer. He just attacked. The fight was brief and brutal. Cinder was powerful, her magic fueled by stolen maiden powers. But Naruto, wrapped in the fox's chakra, was something else entirely. He moved faster than she could track. He hit harder than anything she had ever faced. He shattered her defenses, broke through her flames, and sent her crashing into a wall. He stood over her, his three tails lashing, his eyes burning with crimson fire. He could end her. Right here, right now. It would be so easy. Naruto, stop. Amber's voice. Weak but clear. He looked at her. She was on her feet, leaning on her staff, her face pale but determined. If you kill her, you become what they say you are, she whispered. A monster. Don't let them take that from you. The red haze flickered. The fox growled, angry at being denied its prey. But Naruto held on. He looked at Cinder, broken and defeated at his feet. He looked at Amber, brave and kind despite everything. He looked at the chaos around him, the destruction Watts had caused. And he made a choice. He released the chakra. The shroud dissolved. The tails vanished. He was just Naruto again, standing in the ruins of the courtyard, his body aching, his soul weary. He looked up at the holographic screen, at Watts' shocked face. It's over, Watts, he said. You lose. Watts' shock morphed into a cold, calculating fury. This isn't over, boy. This is just the beginning. You've shown us what you can do. And now we'll find a way to use it against you. The screen went dark. The Grim, suddenly leaderless, began to retreat. The attack was over. Naruto stood in the silence, surrounded by smoke and debris. Penny appeared at his side, her eyes wide with awe. Naruto, that was incredible. You controlled it. You actually controlled it. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. But they were his hands. He was still himself. Yeah, he whispered. I did. The aftermath of the Watts attack was a blur of clean-up, debriefings, and hushed conversations in Ashbin's office. Naruto told them everything, how he had felt the fox's rage, how he had invited it forward instead of fighting it, how he had maintained control. Ashbin listened in silence, his ancient eyes thoughtful. When Naruto finished, he simply nodded. You've taken the first step, he said. But it is only the first. The fox's power is vast. You've accessed a fraction of it. There are 6 more tails to master, and with each one, the risk of losing yourself grows. I know, Naruto said. But I also know I'm not alone anymore. He looked at the people in the room. John, battered but beaming with pride. Amber, safe and sound, her eyes filled with gratitude. Roman, leaning against the wall, a grudging respect in his gaze. Penny, bouncing with excitement. Crow, nodding slowly, a hint of approval in his tired eyes. And Winter. Winter Schnee had arrived on the first airship from Atlas, her face pale with worry. She stood apart from the others, her arms crossed, her expression guarded. But when Naruto caught her eye, something flickered in her gaze. Relief. And something else. Something softer. I heard you gave Cinderfall a beating, she said, her voice crisp but not unkind. I'm impressed. You finally fought like you had something to lose. I did, Naruto said quietly. I had all of you. Winter's mask slipped, just for a moment. A faint blush touched her cheeks. She looked away, but not before Naruto saw the small, almost imperceptible smile. That night, Naruto sat alone on the roof, staring at the stars. The city of Vale glittered below him, oblivious to the war that was brewing in the shadows. He thought of his father, back in Atlas, waiting for news. He thought of his mother, the woman who had died in the snow to save him. He thought of the fox, curled up in the depths of his soul, no longer raging, but watching. Waiting. Footsteps behind him. He didn't turn. Couldn't sleep? Winter asked, sitting down beside him. It was a small gesture, but for Winter Schnee, it was monumental. She didn't sit on roofs. She didn't do casual. Too much to think about, Naruto admitted. They sat in silence for a long moment, watching the stars. My father wants you to come home, Winter said finally. He's proud of you. He wants to see you. Naruto nodded. I know. I'll go. Soon. He paused. But not yet. There's still work to do here. Amber needs protection. The team needs training. And I need to learn. Winter was quiet for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. You've changed, Naruto, she said softly. When we first met, you were a brilliant, reckless boy trying to prove yourself. Now, she looked at him, her blue eyes meeting his. Now you're something else. Something more. Naruto squeezed her hand. Is that a good thing? She didn't answer with words. She just leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust so profound it took his breath away. They sat like that, watching the stars, as the night deepened around them. The war was coming. Salem was out there, waiting. Cinder was wounded but not defeated. Watts was planning his next move. The future was uncertain and terrifying. But for this one moment, on this one roof, with the girl he loved at his side and the monster within finally at peace, Naruto Uzumaki allowed himself to simply be. He was the son of a general, the host of a demon, the leader of a team of misfits, the Fox of Atlas. And for the first time in his life, he knew exactly who he was. Epilogue, A New Beginning. The airship lifted off from Beacon's landing pad, carrying Winter back to Atlas. Naruto watched it go, his hand raised in a final wave. Beside him, his team stood in a ragged line. John clapped him on the shoulder. She'll be back, you know. That girl's got it bad. Naruto snorted. Winter Schnee? She doesn't have it bad for anyone. She's made of ice and discipline. Keep telling yourself that, Your Majesty, Roman drawled, tipping his hat. We all saw the hand-holding. Amber laughed, a light, happy sound that was becoming more frequent. Leave him alone. He's allowed to have feelings. Feelings are a weakness, Roman countered, but there was no malice in his voice. Penny, who had decided to stay at Beacon as an official exchange student, bounced up and down. Feelings are wonderful. They're what make us human. Well, human-adjacent, in my case. Naruto looked at his team, his strange, dysfunctional, wonderful team, and smiled. All right, everyone, he said, his voice carrying the weight of command, but also the warmth of friendship. We've got a lot of work to do. Training starts in an hour. John, you're working on footwork. Roman, you're helping me with tactical planning. Amber, Penny and I have energy exercises. Let's move. They scattered each to their own tasks. Naruto lingered for a moment, looking up at the sky where Winter's airship had disappeared. Take care of yourself, Schnee, he whispered. Then he turned and walked toward the future, ready to face whatever came next.